Hey Clashes, we have 5 heroes by now in the game, and this means a ton of equipments. The question now is, what are the best equipments to use, and what top equipment combinations should you bring with different strategies? Well, we're going to go through 11 of the top strategies right now in the game, and what the best combinations of equipments are, and how you should play those. But first off, we should take a look at the epic equipment of the Royal Champion, because those two epic equipments are so different that I'm not really sure if you should use them together. Instead, let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of every single one of them. The Electro boots, well, the buff is permanent. That's already a big plus for them. It's incredible DPS because the aura deals a lot of damage. The only weakness, well, the Royal Champion has to pretty much go close range to deal all of this damage, which is not the greatest. There's only a couple of strategies which can really support the Royal Champion in those cases. Royal Champ charges or behind a big group of troops. Those are the biggest options of solid use cases for this equipment. Either in safety or in complete isolation, where you put every single protection-wise invisibility spell, for example, into the Royal Champ. Good combinations are the Hot Rider Puppet or the Haste Vial. The other epic equipment which we already have in the game is the Rocket Spear. The Rocket Spear is incredibly strong. It has a long range, which means the Royal Champion is always staying safe. It has really good DPS, which means really good damage, which you can boost into a base. And the only weakness is, well, it's not permanent, which means it only has limited shots. The best combinations are the Hot Rider Puppet and the Shield. The Spear is pretty much in most cases still stronger, but the Electro boots are kind of similar to the Fireball, where there is a couple of strategies where you can use and boost the power of the equipment really high, and for most other strategies it feels somewhat useless. But I would just go through all of the strategies as I just said. As well, I just don't want to remind you about the Supercell store too much, but the medals which you can get for the event are now going to be shared on this website. So that is important for you. Even if you don't want to buy anything, make sure that you're visiting the store to claim your medals so you can get free medals. And that's a couple of times over the entire event. So make sure that you keep visiting the store. And if you want to buy anything, like for example the pass, make sure that you're supporting your favorite content creator out there. And for me, it's iTzu. I really appreciate that. But let's get started with the Root Riders. The classic Root Rider spam. And for this one, not that much is changing. Especially for the Barbarian King, the Spiky Ball and Earthquake Boots is pretty much the best combination for every single strategy, which makes it easy for you to upgrade stuff. It works every single time. For the Queen, if you're doing ground attacks, Healer Puppet and the Magic Mirror are always going to be used. The Warden has one of the most flexible equipment settings, so I guess that's the hero where you would need to put most ores into. The Royal Champion now has a couple of cool options as well, but for most strategies, the Hot Rider Puppet and the Rocket Spear are still going to be the best options, especially in those attacks. You have the Royal Champion staying around, but always safe with the Hot Rider and the Spear. But now let's get into the next strategy, which is as well Root Riders, but this one is a Royal Champion charge into the Recall spell to set up the pathing for the Root Riders, and then we just put the Root Riders in and hopefully get great value. This is, by the way, as well the strategy which I will most likely run after with the event start now, with the release of this new epic equipment for the Royal Champ, because I think it's a really cool way of utilizing this new epic equipment, because it is, like I said, kind of like the Fireball. It has a lot of potential, but it only works for the correct strategies, like the Fireball itself, which does not always work, but in the strategies where it's good, oh, it's really good. Let's now talk about dragons. Dragons, Dragon Riders, or Super Dragons, for example, all are falling under this category. For the Super Dragons, you want to use the Healing Tome. Or in general, the rule of thumb is if you have rages on your own in your army, and no, not just for the blimp, for the clone blimp in general. If you have rages in your army, you want to bring the Healing Tome. If you do not have many rages in your army, like the clone blimp, where you have only one rage and that is for the cloned loons, then bring the Rage Gem. This is pretty much how you should work around that. And since we have rages in our army capacity for the Super Dragons, I will bring the Healing Tome to keep my Super Dragons alive. Otherwise, it's again the same. For Dragon type attacks, the same for Electro Dragons, we're using the Giant Arrow and the Healer Puppet. As I said, King is never changing, King is always the same. And then for the Air Hero, there is not any options. But Electro Dragons, especially because they're not synergizing that well with the new hero, you can bring the Roy Champ as well if you want to. And it kind of depends on what level your heroes are, but the new hero works for sure as well with the Electro Dragons, but Roy Champ works fine as well. It's completely depending on your playstyle with the Electro Dragons. Both works, both will get you 3 stars. Let's move on now to the Electro Titans. I have shared a video about this strategy just a couple of days ago, and it's ranking basis. And as in most smash type attacks or in most ground attacks, we have, again with the Roy Champion, the spear with the Hot Rider puppet. As well, if you don't want to spend too many ores, too many stereo ores onto epic equipments, you can go with the haste and the Hot Rider puppet as well. That's always like the plan B option if you don't want to go for the epic ones. But otherwise, Rocket Spear and Hot Rider puppet is a perfect combination. But why is it so good? As I said earlier, you have the option of like setting the Roy Champion in, not using the ability just yet, but if there is pressure on the Roy Champion, that's the moment where you use the ability. The Roy Champ is turning invisible, is standing still, firing at a long range, and the Hot Riders are providing the coverage so the Roy Champion can stay alive. The next strategy is the first strategy, which is using the Fireball, which is the Super Witch smash attack. Stars right now, I believe, is rank 1 with bringing his Super Witch army into the top ranks of Legends. And Fireball attacks are still incredibly strong on Tower 17, 16, 15, like, works pretty much everywhere. It is such a strong equipment and it's such a strong strategy in general, having such a Fireball at the beginning of your attack. Super Witches are a great follow-up because they're generating their own protection with the giant skeletons, and as well with the healers in the race gem of the Warden, they're not really going down, so that is a really big advantage. Royal Champion, King and Queen are not really changing, as I said, for most smash, for most ground attacks. This means it's the same thing over here. For the thrower though, you have a couple of options. If you're doing a quick Warden walk, the double gem equipment on the Warden is, in my opinion, the best. And I've shown that already many times in my Clan War League season, for example. But if you want to go for like Rage Tower setups and other things like heavy areas of like damage, the Fireball is a really good option. With that, the thrower is incredibly strong and especially has more potential, in my opinion, than other strategies. But if the throwers are going the wrong direction or not staying on top of each other, you have messed up. So controlling that is not easy and makes this strategy sometimes a bit more risky, while a lot of people are not running it. But the potential, if everything works and they're staying on top of each other, you cannot fail. It's impossible. They're just so tanky with the healing, with everything, and dealing so much damage. It's crazy. But let's move on, and this right now is probably the best strategy in the game. I know. Whenever I upload my videos, I typically put that for Hydra attacks or, for example, for Root Rider attacks or Titan attacks, where I call them the best and easiest strategies, which is true. Because the problem here is that most players cannot utilize strategies where I say, hey, this is literally the best strategy. If I would have told that to most players back then with the Lalo meta, would have been a completely useless call because those players would have been not good enough to actually play Lalo. And it's the same thing with this strategy. It takes you a lot of timing, it takes you a lot of multitasking, it takes you a lot of planning and game knowledge, because you need to know the perfect range of the Fireball to know the value, you need how much value you can get with your heroes, the Rocket Loon interactions with different defenses and hit points, and everything in general is not easy about the strategy, but if executed perfectly, it is incredibly strong, as Cynthia is showing right now in High Legends, as he's resetting on like rank 2 or something in High Legend League. Next one is Lalo. To me, it's not really deserving this spot within the top 10, but I get so many questions about Lalo that I would still stick it in here, okay? For the ground push in the beginning for the heroes, King and Queen, same equipments as always. As I already told you, okay? King and Queen equipments are pretty boring because they're always the same. We have such clear winners right now on those two heroes that they're not changing much. For the Warden, you have two options. I prefer the Life Gem with the Eternal Tome quite a lot, but some people still like to run the Healing Tome. I don't think it's as strong, but just to make sure that you know. You can now combine this with the Royal Champion. Again, Spear and, for example, the Shield are an incredible option, but you can as well remove the Royal Champion entirely and just add the Minion Prince with the Lalo together. Both should work, both should give you great success. The next strategy is going to be blimp type attacks, and I'm now talking about heavy blimp commitment, which means super archer blimps, super minion blimps, or maybe thrower blimps, where you're pretty much blimping at the beginning of the attack to clear out an area of the base. Invisibility, clone spells, everything, heavy investment into this blimp, and then you're following up with different strategies, such as Root Riders, such as Dragon Riders, all those type of attacks. And the equipments here are depending on whatever the second part of the attack is. If you're playing Root Riders, watch back the video and check out what the best equipments are, what the best combinations are for the Root Rider follow-up. If you're playing after that Hydra, for example, check out the best equipments over there. That's pretty much how you have to encounter those heavy blimp attacks. By the way, a Hydra with a clone Doom blimp is not falling under this category. Let's move on to the Hot Rider, or the Super Hot Rider attack, which I think a lot of times is not really getting enough credits, because it's still incredibly strong in Town Hall 17, and with the Hot Rider and being able to push through defenses like it's nothing, and the new heal spell level, oh boy, it's still so strong. The Hero Dive, again, with the ground attacks, is the same. I know it's boring, I know, but hey, it's easy for you for the upgrades for the equipments, right? So that makes it easier. There's like 2 equipments you need to upgrade for the King, 3 for the Queen, Giant Arrow, Healer Puppet, and the Mirror. Warden, it's way more, pretty much every equipment is viable. And the Royal Champion, it is Hot Rider Puppet, then maybe Electro Boots if you prefer those attack styles. It's like the Fireball, you can use it when you're using those strategies, or just completely ignore it if you don't play those specific strategies which are really empowering that equipment. So Rocket Spear, Hot Rider Puppet, maybe the Shield, but not many options either. So we have clear winners right now when it comes down to the meta within the equipments. But as well, that's it for the video. I would love to know though some feedback of you guys if you like this current format of presenting to you what the best equipments are for different strategies, or do you like the old ranking videos more, where I was more going into like general rankings of the equipments. Let me know what you prefer. Let me know if I've missed any strategies maybe, and I will see you guys back tomorrow with the next class video. Until then, see ya and bye bye.